Now for round two on this shuffle solo, we're going to introduce a few other concepts that I like to keep in my soloing toolkit. The first one we've kind of touched on a little bit already, but we're going to get deeper into double stops. Now double stops are when you play two notes at the same time, usually separated by an interval like a third or a fourth or a sixth. These are the kind of things, I mean, you'll hear guys like Steve Cropper do on classic soul records, like, that's kind of a classic example of double stops. But what I like to do is actually, take scales and harmonize them in thirds or fourths, or combinations of both, and kind of play them down in melodic lines, like. Right, you can come up with some really interesting ways of playing pretty simple melodies, but they just sound cool because you've got those two notes kind of working together. And, you can slide them around, come up with some really cool things. Right, just interesting different types of phrases. So that's the first thing we're going to dig into, and in both times through this solo, I'm going to use some different double stops around the fretboard. The other thing I want to focus on is specifically over the 5 chord moving to the 4 chord. Now this was a spot for me years ago when I was like first starting to play blues that could be kind of a trouble spot sometimes, because you've got these different chord changes that you really want to address, but sometimes it's tricky to come up with vocabulary to play over those chords. So one thing that you'll hear a lot of blues players do is take a simple phrase and kind of play it over the 5 chord and then repeat that same phrase a whole step down over the 4 chord. For instance, if we're playing in the key of A, I can play something over this E7 chord like a, and then take that same phrase, move it down a whole step, and play it over the D chord, and then wrap it up going back to the A. Right, so. Right, something like that. That's kind of a simple example, but that's something we're going to do over these 5 chords moving to the 4 chord. And again, there's lots of different ways you can do that type of thing, not simply just by taking the same phrase and moving it down, but taking the same notes and moving them across the strings. So those are the two things we're going to focus on here, and those are both really effective tools that I use all the time when I'm coming up with solos.